Hi, welcome to Two Gay Guys Talking About Jesus. I'm Lauer,
I'm Carey Whitley. Welcome.
and we're both two Southern boys, two gay Southern boys. I grew up in Tidewater, Virginia, the home of Pat Robertson and Jim and Tammy Baker and the whole Christian TV movement back in the '60s when I was a kid.
And I grew up in the Bible Belt of Georgia, which is a little different than Virginia, but it's still south. And but all that's good. 30 years ago, I came to Virginia and have made Virginia my home. And it's been a journey. It's still a journey, but that's what life is.
And growing up in the South, Jesus is a huge influence in everybody's life, really. I'd say most Christians. And not always Jesus himself, but what churches and what the experts and the authorities say about him. And that can be confusing for anybody if you're growing up LGBTQ, and especially decades ago, and we were. It's a lot to unpack and a lot to deal with. But, despite all of that, we found a lot in the teachings and the stories of Jesus that really affected us for the better and have guided us and given our lives meaning.
You know, church was a way that I dealt with the journey. I dealt with the task of growing up on a farm, of having parents that didn't understand who I was. And I guess I really didn't understand who they were. I thought that they were my friends and loving and caring, and there was no transaction. I wanted to be loved, unconditional, and I found that love in the church and different places and small group meetings, teaching Sunday school, being asked to be a volunteer music director and directing the kids choir at a young age. All of that's is history, but it's what makes me me.
Same here. I had different experiences, different denominations. It was more mainstream, but the same things. And but going back, and so much of it growing up with that when we got older and started dealing in puberty and adolescence with sexuality, those things that had been, and that even were a strength, became a challenge because of a lot of the homophobia and that one finds in organized religion. And so that's not peculiar to Christianity. I think anybody in a strict Orthodox faith of any sort deals with that sort of thing. And so those are the things we're going to talk about in our videos here.
You know, I entered school at the age of 6 years old, almost 7, in 1969. And Middle Georgia County, that was one of the last, except for Miller County, was the last to integrate. And went to a private school for a couple of years, and then went back to public school, and finding it a whole different world, a world similar to what we have now.
Yeah.
And with discrimination, being talked about, being bullied, feeling like I didn't fit in. Always fall back and lean into the teachings of Christ, where, again, it was unconditional love, and it was for me. It was for me.
Yeah, what you just said about it's the world that we live in now, that was it. It was so much of what we were raised with in our respective traditions was about clinging on to the past and fighting progress, fighting what has come to pass, and that what most people now accept. And that's, you know, so much of that, especially when you're in the 70s and 80s, when you're going through adolescence and young adulthood, and you're dealing with your sexuality, and the religion, the church that you're a part of is just condemns that, and you really struggle with, they're rejecting you, and you realize that all the stuff that you heard about unconditional love maybe wasn't as simple as you were led to believe, at least the way other people viewed it.
Well, even the church sometimes was
Yeah.
guilty of
Yeah.
making it so easy, you know,
Yeah.
of acceptance.
Yeah.
But when you got into the nuts and the bolts of it all, and the religiosity, and politics, and not being able to separate the two, again, we're back to the same old thing.
Yep.
Just like, you know, we're going back to Bible days now, folks. And, you know, we're trying to make reason of this reset. We're trying to make reason of just a purpose for moving forward, and wanting yet at the same time to go back the way things were. We're not going back, folks. We're not going back. We are in a global situation. We're in a creation situation. And the only way, we're in progress.
That's it.
Of something new, evolving. And, you know, I know that there's misunderstanding maybe in that, but sit with it. Let it resonate with you. Yeah.
And that's really what we're going to explore here in all these videos. We're going to reminisce about where we've been and how it's a part of who we are now as gay men, and as men of faith, and as ethical men, and men who are for this progress and who want to help people. And we know that there are 12, 13, 14-year-olds even now in 2020 that are in places, maybe very religious homes, who are really struggling. And we've been there, and we are going to talk about that. And it does get better. That was a saying that was around a few years ago, and it does. And that's just it. Everything can get better. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you're scrolling through YouTube and you come across some person who's just angry or upset, and they're just so negative and saying
they
something
feel the victim.
Ignorant. They're
We
being
all
victimized.
have that story. We're all, you know, we've lived the life of,
and the whole time they're
victim.
going on their rant, they're quoting Jesus and the Bible. And I think most people, I certainly feel this way, read that and think, I want nothing to do with that. And what we're offering here is the antidote to that. We're not trying to convert anybody to anything. We just want people to realize
we want to offer a safe place.
Yeah.
Where people can, no judgment. We just want to share and offer a place, a safe place, where you can share, where you can say anything you want to say it any way you want to say it, because we do have things that are alike about us, and we have those things that make us different, but we all serve the same God. We serve his Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. And you know, my first recollection of Jesus was just being this loving Father, this loving person in my life that cared so much about me. And at a young age, I even prayed when I misunderstood maybe my parents or what was going on in the church. I still wanted to be like him because to me he was just an angel and a saint, and I wanted to be like that. I didn't want all the bullying. I wanted things to be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, folks. And
that's okay,
yeah,
too.
it's okay.
Totally okay.
Because our purpose is still to create
And to grow.
and to grow
to progress.
and to be, continue in his likeness and move toward that better than we were yesterday state. Be the most we can be.
My earliest memories of Jesus, and I grew up in a Methodist church, mainstream. My parents, like I say, we were religious, but not too religious. We went to church on Sundays. We had said grace, and my parents read me Bible stories and things, but they weren't evangelical at all. There was none of that at that point in my family. I remember I had a whole series of little picture books by a very popular Christian writer who published in one mainstream book publishers, Mary Alice Jones. And these were just books about Jesus being kind and Jesus loving children. I remember there was a book that, I don't know what it was called, it's something God in the title, but the cover was like a little boy climbing a tree looking into a bird's nest with a mother bird and her baby birds. And it was about God's love or something. And so it was that simple. It was the idea of just being good. And Jesus was just the epitome of this, of goodness in the human being. That's how simple it was for me originally. And that's what, as a kid, spoke to me. Just kindness and goodness. And there was no deep theology behind any of it at that point. But that's the foundation of my character, I guess. I mean, those were the things earliest on.
Yeah.
And those were still, even though in the decades since isn't all I've studied theology and I've ping-ponged around in a lot of different religious traditions, it's still, at the end of the day, all comes back to that, to human kindness. And that's how the divine is manifested in the world. It's just through human kindness.
I've never wanted to be anything but everything I could be for my fellow man, for humanity, for the sake of humanity. Jesus and God were very real to me, and everything I did as a kid, I felt was giving back. And sometimes, again, there was ridicule. There was somebody else that was always trying to pull me back down. You know, we'd have religious experiences and aha moments, or we'd have our own epiphanies, and it would seem like that maybe that would last maybe a week sometime and maybe 2 weeks sometime, and we were always left with the question, why wasn't it lasting? Why wasn't it, where did the meaning go? Where did the emotion go? Where did the awareness go with that situation and for that place and time that we related to, that we were able to embrace for a short time before we moved on?
We had those religious experiences, and I always felt like I was being seen for who I was.
Right.
And that's what I think any human being wants.
Exactly.
They just want to be seen and
They
loved.
want to be heard. All of that is what's built into us.
Yeah.
Of acceptance. Again, to the unconditional. It's simple.
Yeah.
It's not hard. There shouldn't be anything hard about it.
But as we learned as we got older, despite this beautiful, simple view of Jesus, and especially when you get into puberty and things, it became very challenging, difficult, sometimes very painful. And we'll be talking about that. But the good thing is, the good news is, you know, the journey keeps going and things got better. And regardless of how tough it might be for you in dealing with your faith, regardless of what your faith is, we're not here to convert anybody to Christianity or anything, because we realize we're all much more alike, regardless of what religious language we use. Jesus is just the language that we, in the Bible and those stories, those are the language that we grew up with. But if you've grown up in any sort of dogmatic, judgmental community of faith, and especially if you're LGBTQ and you grew up in that type of, you know, we can all relate to that, because, like I said, we all want to be seen and loved for who we are.
And Rob and I want you to gather with us, to join with us. I have, we're launching a couple of situations, a couple of new ventures, if you will. Reclaim coaching and transformation. Also,
Carob expressions and life
Carob
center.
expressions. I'm on camera, I'm nervous, but anyways. Yeah, Carob expressions and Life Center. We invite you to follow us and be a part of our community. You don't have to be LGBTQ. This is open to
Anybody.
This platform is open. This forum is open. This community is for like-minded folks.
Yeah.
And we hope that you'll join us.
So, if this speaks to you, like this video and subscribe to Two Gay Guys Talking About Jesus.